Most people think getting rich is about working harder than everyone else. And I believe that too for a long time. I thought if I just put in more hours, stayed later, sacrificed more, showed up earlier than everybody else, the money would eventually come. That was the deal, right? Work hard, get rewarded. Simple. But that's not how it works. That's actually one of the biggest lies we tell ourselves about wealth. And the dangerous thing about that lie is that it feels so virtuous. It feels so noble. You're not being greedy. You're not cutting corners. You're just working hard. How could that possibly be wrong? And yet, decades pass, and people who worked incredibly hard their entire lives arrive at retirement with almost nothing. Not because they were lazy, not because they were stupid, but because nobody ever explained the actual rules of the game they were playing. So that's what this is about. The rules nobody taught you, not your parents, because most of them didn't know either, not your school, because schools are designed to create employees, not wealthy people, not your first boss, because your boss had every incentive to keep you focused on your work and very little incentive to help you understand money. They handed you a paycheck, pointed you toward a desk, and said, figure it out. Most people never do. Let me start with something fundamental, something that once you understand it, you'll start seeing everywhere. There are two completely different financial worlds running simultaneously, right now today, in the same economy, in the same country, sometimes in the same building. The first world is the one almost everyone lives in. You trade your time for money. You show up, you work, you get paid. You stop showing up, the money stops. It's a direct, linear exchange. Your income has a ceiling because your time has a ceiling. There are only so many hours in a day, only so many years in a career, only so much energy in a human body. In this world, the harder you work, the more you earn up to a point. And then you hit the ceiling, and no amount of additional effort gets you past it. The second world operates on completely different logic. In this world, money generates money. Assets produce income. While you sleep, while you're on vacation, while you're sick, while you're doing literally anything else, your money is out there working. This world has no ceiling because money, unlike human energy, doesn't get tired. It doesn't need weekends. It doesn't burn out. Now, here's the painful part. Almost everyone starts in the first world. That's fine. That's normal. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem is that almost nobody teaches you how to move from the first world into the second. And the longer you stay exclusively in the first world, the harder the transition becomes, because the first world is designed to keep you in it. It rewards you just enough to keep you dependent. The paycheck comes in, the bills go out, and if you're not deliberate about it, you spend your entire life on that treadmill wondering why you never seem to get ahead despite running so hard. The secret to crossing from the first world into the second is not some complex financial strategy. It's not about finding the right stock or the right investment or the right guru. It's simpler and harder than all of that. It's about keeping some of what you earn. That's it. That's the bridge between the two worlds. Every dollar you keep is a potential worker you're hiring. Every dollar you spend is a worker you're letting go before they even start. And most people, without realizing it, are constantly firing their entire workforce the moment it arrives. I want to talk about compound interest now. And I don't mean the textbook definition. I don't mean the formula. I mean the actual lived experience of understanding what compound interest really does over time, because most people hear the concept and think, yeah, okay, interest on interest, I get it. And then they go back to their lives completely unchanged. So let me try to make this real. Imagine you have a single dollar, and that dollar earns a small return. And then the next period, you earn a return on the dollar plus the return. And then on all of that combined, and then on all of that, over a short time, the numbers are small, almost insultingly small. You're not impressed. It doesn't feel like anything, but something is happening mathematically that human intuition is genuinely terrible at understanding. The growth is not adding, it's multiplying. And multiplication, given enough time, produces numbers that feel almost impossible. Albert Einstein allegedly called compound interest the eighth wonder of the world. Whether he actually said that or not, the point stands. He said those who understand it earn it, and those who don't pay it. And that second part is where most people actually live. They're not on the earning side of compound interest. They're on the paying side because debt compounds too. Credit card interest compounds. Loan interest compounds. Every financial product designed to extract money from you is using the exact same mathematical force, just pointed in the opposite direction. So the battle of personal finance at its most fundamental level is a battle over which side of compound interest you're on. Are you harnessing it, or are you being crushed by it? And every financial decision you make every single day is quietly answering that question. Now, let me talk about the gap, because this is the concept that ties everything together. And it's the one that people resist the most because it's so simple that it feels insulting. The gap is the difference between what you earn and what you spend. That's it. That's the whole foundation of personal finance. Everything else, every investment vehicle, every tax strategy, every wealth building technique you will ever encounter is completely useless without this gap. You cannot invest money you don't have. You cannot build wealth while spending everything you make. The math simply doesn't allow it. Now I know what some of you are thinking right now. You're thinking, I don't earn enough to have a meaningful gap. And I want to address that seriously because I'm not going to be dismissive about it. There are real constraints. There are people in genuinely difficult financial situations where the gap is almost impossible to create because the income is just too low and the necessary expenses are just too high. That is real, and I'm not minimizing it. But I want to be honest about something else too. Most people, not all, but most, underestimate their control over the gap. They overestimate how much of their spending is truly necessary. They underestimate how much of it is habitual, emotional, or driven by social pressure. They've made so many automatic spending decisions for so long that those decisions no longer feel like choices. They feel like fixed costs. They feel like inevitabilities. The streaming subscriptions, the daily coffee, the regular takeout because cooking feels like too much after a long day, the upgraded phone because the old one still works, but everyone seems to have the new one, the clothes, the gadgets, the experiences purchased not because you genuinely wanted them, but because they appeared in your feed at the right moment when you were bored or tired or a little bit sad and needed something. None of those things are evil. None of them make you a bad person, but they are choices. And when you add them up, the total is often shocking. There's a concept called lifestyle inflation that quietly destroys more wealth than almost any other force. It works like this. You get a raise. You've been working hard, you deserve it, and now you have more money coming in. And almost automatically, your spending adjusts upward to match. The apartment gets a little nicer. The car gets a little newer. The restaurants get a little better. The vacations get a little more expensive, and your gap stays exactly the same or gets smaller. You earn more and end up with less to show for it because you've inflated your lifestyle to absorb every dollar of additional income before it can do any real work for you. The antidote to lifestyle inflation is something I'd call intentional lag. When your income increases, deliberately choose to keep your lifestyle the same or close to the same for a defined period of time. Let the gap grow. Let that additional income become additional investment. Give it time to start compounding before you upgrade your life with it. This is psychologically difficult because increasing your lifestyle feels like a reward. It feels like you've earned the right to spend more. And maybe you have, but there's a difference between occasionally and deliberately treating yourself and automatically inflating every aspect of your life every time you earn a little more. The wealthy people I've observed and studied don't live dramatically different from what they earn at any given moment. The gap is not a temporary thing for them. It's a permanent feature of how they relate to money. They never fully close it regardless of how much they make. And that gap, maintained consistently over decades, is what produces real financial freedom. I need to talk about debt now because this is where most people's financial story quietly falls apart, not dramatically, not all at once. Quietly, slowly, in ways that are easy to rationalize in the moment and devastating to look back on years later. First, let me make a distinction that I think is genuinely important. There is debt that builds things, and there is debt that finances lifestyle. Debt that builds things has specific characteristics. It funds assets that appreciate or generate income. It costs you less in interest than it produces in returns. A mortgage on a property in a market where values are rising. A business loan deployed into operations generating real profit. Student debt for a credential that demonstrably increases your earning capacity. These forms of debt can be tools used carefully with clear logic behind them. Then there's the other kind. The credit card balance rolled over month after month at 18 or 20 or 25% interest. The car loan on a vehicle depreciating faster than you're paying it off. The buy now, pay later scheme that makes a $300 purchase feel like it costs nothing until you're paying it back in ways that make it cost significantly more. The personal loan taken to fund a vacation. The debt accumulated to maintain an appearance of prosperity that doesn't actually exist. This kind of debt is a slow leak, and the terrifying thing about a slow leak is that it doesn't feel urgent. The house isn't on fire. The situation isn't a crisis. You can function with a slow leak for years and years and years. You just wonder why you're always working and never quite getting ahead. Why every time things start to feel okay, something happens and you're back at zero. Why the paycheck always seems to disappear before the next one arrives. The leak is why. And the cruel mathematics of high interest debt means that minimum payments are almost designed to keep you in debt as long as possible. If you carry a significant balance on a credit card and make only minimum payments, you can end up paying back 2 or 3 times the original amount over a decade or more. The lender isn't helping you manage your debt. They're managing you. Now, here's what I really want to say about debt, the part that goes beyond the mathematics. Getting out of debt is not primarily a math problem. The math is actually simple. Pay more than the minimum. Target the highest interest rate first, or use the psychological winds of the snowball method to build momentum. Stay consistent. Don't add new debt while paying off old debt. That's the math. A spreadsheet can do the math in seconds. The real problem is psychological, because debt carries shame. And shame is one of the most dangerous emotions in personal finance because of what it makes us do. It makes us avoid. It makes us stop looking at our accounts because we don't want to see the numbers. It makes us stop opening certain mail. It makes us decline to make a budget because making a budget means confronting the reality we've been working very hard not to see. And here's the devastating thing about avoidance. It doesn't pause the problem. The debt doesn't stop compounding while you look away. The interest keeps accumulating. The situation keeps getting worse. And the worse it gets, the more painful it is to look at. And the more painful it is to look at, the longer you avoid it. That cycle, shame leading to avoidance, leading to worsening situation, leading to more shame, is what keeps people trapped in debt for decades. Not the debt itself, the psychology around it. The bravest financial act most people could take is not some sophisticated investment maneuver. It's sitting down with a piece of paper or a spreadsheet or just a notes app on your phone and writing out exactly where they are. Every account, every balance, every interest rate, every minimum payment, no rounding, no optimistic estimates. No, I'll get to that one later. The exact, honest, complete current picture. That exercise is terrifying for a lot of people. And it is also the beginning of everything. And because you cannot navigate toward a destination you can't see from where you're standing. Avoidance doesn't make the destination closer. It just makes the map impossible to read. Let me talk about income now. Because everything I've said assumes some income to work with. And I think people make a very consistent, very predictable mistake when they think about growing their income. They optimize for salary when they should be optimizing for skill. I understand why. Salary is tangible. It's the number on the offer letter. It's what you can tell people. It feels like the measure of your value. And in the short term, a higher salary does create a larger paycheck. But salary is a lagging indicator. It follows your value in the market rather than leading it. And your value in the market is determined by what you're capable of, by the skills you've developed, by the problems you can solve that others can't. When you're early in your career, your income ceiling is not really set by the job market. It's set by what you bring to the market. And what you bring to the market is something you are actively building or actively neglecting every single day. Those two paths diverge slowly at first and then dramatically over time. Consider two people starting careers at the same point, same age, and similar starting salaries. One spends the next decade optimizing for the highest immediate compensation, taking whatever job pays most right now, avoiding risk, staying comfortable. The other spends that same decade collecting skills aggressively, taking opportunities to learn even when they pay less, building expertise in areas where the market is growing, developing capabilities that compound on each other. At 35, those two people are in completely different financial universes. Not because of luck, not because the market was unfair, but because the skills they built or didn't build determined everything that followed. Skills compound. Every capability you add doesn't just make you marginally better at that one thing. It makes you faster at learning the next thing. It builds confidence that makes you more effective across everything you do. It expands your network into more valuable circles. It makes you someone who can adapt to change rather than someone threatened by it. And in an economy changing as rapidly as ours, adaptability might be the single most valuable financial asset you can own, more valuable than any specific credential, any particular job title, any industry you might currently be in. So if you're early in your career or even mid career and feeling stuck, and you're making decisions purely on the basis of immediate compensation, I want you to genuinely reconsider. The skills you build in the next 5 years will compound for the next 30. The salary you chase this year will be irrelevant in a decade if you haven't built the underlying capability to justify an even larger one. Now I want to say something that some people will resist, but I think it's important enough to say clearly. Most people's financial problems are not really about money. They're about emotions. Think about it. The impulse purchase that happens when you're bored at 11 o'clock at night, scrolling through your phone, the retail therapy that kicks in after a hard day or a difficult conversation, the expensive lifestyle upgrade that happens the moment you get a raise, the very windfall that was supposed to help you save, the gambling, the risky investments bought on a rush of excitement, the get rich quick schemes that promise to shortcut the slow, legitimate path. All of that is emotion wearing the costume of financial decision making. Money is never really just about money. It's about what money means to us. And those meanings are deeply personal, often unconscious, frequently rooted in childhood and family history and experiences we haven't fully processed. For some people, spending money feels like freedom, like proof that they've made it, that they're not the kid who had to go without any more. Every purchase is a small act of defiance against scarcity they once experienced. For others, accumulating money feels like safety, like protection against a chaotic world that once let them down in ways that had nothing to do with finances. For some people, money feels like power and status and worth, and spending it on visible things is really about feeling significant among people whose opinion matters too much. None of these emotional relationships with money are rational, but they're not going to go away just because you understand intellectually that you should be saving more. You can know the right thing to do and still find yourself not doing it over and over again because something underneath the knowledge is steering differently. The only way to change this is to get genuinely honest about what money means to you emotionally, not what it should mean, not what a financially responsible adult is supposed to think about money, what it actually means, what having it feels like in your body, what spending it feels like, what not having it feels like. Those feelings are running your financial life, whether you choose to examine them or not. The person who understands their emotional relationship with money can work with it, can build systems that account for it, can make decisions with their eyes open. The person who insists they're making purely rational financial decisions while being driven by feelings they refuse to examine is flying blind in a storm and calling it clear weather. I've seen people with high six-figure incomes who were completely broke, not because they didn't earn enough, but because of what money meant to them emotionally and the spending behaviors that those meanings produced. And I've seen people with genuinely modest salaries who were quietly, steadily building real financial security because they understood themselves, because they knew their patterns, because they'd built systems to protect their long term intentions from their short term impulses. The numbers matter, the strategies matter, but the psychology underneath determines whether any of it actually works in your real life. There's one more thing I want to address, and it's the thing that trips up even people who understand everything I've said so far. It's the belief that you'll start properly when things settle down, when the car is paid off, when the kids are older, when the job situation is more stable, when you get through this busy season, when things are a little less uncertain, when you finally have enough breathing room to think clearly about all of this. Here is what I need you to hear. Things don't settle down, not in the way you're imagining. Life does not arrive at a stable plateau where all the complications are resolved and you finally have the mental space and financial margin to start making good decisions. What actually happens is that new complications replace the old ones. The car gets paid off and something else needs attention. The kids get older and develop more expensive needs. The job situation stabilizes and then the industry shifts. The busy season ends and another one begins. The version of your future self who is finally ready to start, who has finally gotten their act together, who is living in the conditions where all of this finally makes sense to begin, that person does not exist on the other side of your current circumstances. That person is built through the decisions you make right now, inside your current circumstances, imperfectly, with whatever you actually have. Start small if you have to. Start imperfect. Start with $5 a week if that's genuinely all you can manage, because the amount is almost secondary in the beginning to the act itself, to the identity you're building, to the relationship with money you're developing, to the habit of keeping something, of directing something, of choosing your future self over your present self, even in the smallest ways. That choice, made consistently, builds something real, not just in your bank account, in you, in who you are in relation to money. And that identity shift, that moment where you genuinely begin to think of yourself as someone who builds wealth rather than someone who just survives financially, is worth more than any particular amount you manage to save in any given month. So let me bring this all together. The reason most people never build real financial security is not that they didn't earn enough. It's not that the system was too unfair, although it is imperfect and often unjust. It's not that they didn't work hard enough, because many of them worked themselves to exhaustion. It's that nobody ever explained the actual game to them. Nobody told them about the two worlds and the bridge between them. Nobody explained compound interest in a way that actually landed. Nobody taught them to see and protect the gap. Nobody helped them understand the difference between debt that builds and debt that traps. Nobody encouraged them to optimize for skills over immediate salary when it mattered most. Nobody asked them to examine their emotional relationship with money before that relationship quietly sabotaged everything. And nobody told them that the perfect moment to start doesn't exist, that the only moment that ever actually exists is this one. So here's where I want to leave you. If I could give you one concrete place to begin, regardless of where you are right now, regardless of how much you earn or how much you owe or how long you've been avoiding this, it would be this. Get honest about where you actually are. Every number, no softening, no rounding, no deferring the ones you don't want to look at. The complete, current, honest reality of your financial life, written down somewhere you can see it. That piece of paper is uncomfortable to make. For some people, it's genuinely painful. And it is also the only foundation that holds anything up because you can know every strategy in the world. You can understand compound interest and gap theory and debt payoff methods and skill development and emotional psychology, and none of it builds anything real until you're standing on an honest foundation. Start there. Uh, Everything else follows from there, but it has to start there